Happy Saturday, everybody. Haven't had a video out for a minute except the shorts, of course. I've got one that I've been videoing on the Pinto. I didn't want to put it out till I got it completely finished, but with my knee blown out, I'm going to have to throw some content out there for you. This one's the good old-fashioned will it start video on our Pinto. One of the interesting things on this is you're going to see all the nice mistakes that I made and the errors that it causes. There's going to be a lot of editing and voiceover in this because the sound didn't come through, and it's probably a good thing because I think during this ordeal I swore a lot. So thanks for joining Papa's Custom Cars, and please like, share, and subscribe. Get me all the subscribers you can. If you want content, shoot me a note on anything that I'm doing, and I'll follow up with a video. Have a great one, everybody, and have a great 4th of July weekend. So our next project is going to be putting the carburetor and new cables for or positive and negative cables for the battery on the Pinto. So without further ado, let's head outside and go see what we can do with that Pinto. Okay, let's get this carburetor put on. I'd already taken it off, stuffed the rag in there, so we're okay there. All right, this is a standard 2-barrel mounting, and then it uses this adjuster to fit this holly on it. So in the next part of the video, I'm replacing the negative and positive battery cables along with the start solenoid, mainly because someone has used those terminals that you buy and you cut off the old ones and put these new ones on and tighten them with wrenches. And I've always found those to be real faulty. The car, when I first got it,
When you go to start it, it would just click, click, click until you pounded on the terminal or messed around with the terminals, and it would start right up. So those terminals had to be replaced with actual wires. The difference in the cost is a few bucks, but the difference in the headache down the road is horrible. I'm also replacing the solenoid. I ordered a new solenoid, and it came in. This particular solenoid only has one terminal as opposed to most Fords, which have two. And as you'll see later on in the video, this caused a major malfunction, and you'll see that a little bit later in the film, but I'll go ahead and speed this up so we can get through it. I'm kind of thinking that you probably already know how to replace battery cables. You'll notice that right here I pushed that old solenoid down and put the new one in its place. If you're not really sure about your wiring, definitely you want to do this because you want to keep everything exactly where it goes. And that's why I thought this solenoid was going to be perfectly fine. But as you'll see, it's not. Okay, I've got that solenoid all hooked up, and I know I did the wires right because I put that solenoid down, but as you'll find, this solenoid is different than a regular solenoid. So now it's time to put on the battery cables. Okay, also grab my microphone. I don't like not being able to hear, especially I don't want to talk loud because I'm out here and the neighbors are right there. So, you've got, you kidding me? Between 5/8 and 3/4 of an inch. Of course it is. I'm gonna go grab my full set of wrenches. All right, 7/16. That fits. You just grab some old cables and put them on here, and it never helps. That's bad. You should see this universal mounting bracket he's got holding the cable to the car. My goodness.
Here.
So I was unaware that we didn't have volume in this one or microphone in this one. Now what I've done is I put the old solenoid back because the new one has the 2 posts and that one is the factory with the single. So the difference between those posts is what made the difference of the wiring on the solenoid. There were also an extra wire that was hanging down in the car or behind the solenoid that needed to be hooked up too. For some reason that wasn't hooked up, so I didn't know why it didn't work. So I've reattached the old solenoid, put all the battery cable terminals back on. I charged the battery back up again to make sure everything was good to go. And now I'm back to, let's see if we can get the car to start. So I was unaware that we didn't have volume in this one or microphone in this one. Now what I've done is I've put the old solenoid back because the new one has the 2 posts and that one is the factory with the single. So the difference between those posts is what made the difference of the wiring on the solenoid. There were also an extra wire that was hanging down in the car or behind the solenoid that needed to be hooked up too. For some reason that wasn't hooked up, so I didn't know why it didn't work. So I've reattached the old solenoid, put all the battery cable terminals back on. I charged the battery back up again to make sure everything was good to go. And now I'm back to, let's see if we can get the car to start. Okay, now moving over to the start position. Carburetor, I just rebuilt it. It wasn't in very good shape to begin with. You'll notice that I'm replacing the fuel line with a nice new one. There ended up being a crack in the bottom of that line, so I did go ahead and put some new fuel line on it just to be safe. But like I said, I just finished rebuilding this carburetor. There were issues with it. You could get the car to run barely. You couldn't really drive it, and it would not start because the accelerator pump was stuck in the system. There was a lot of rust and a lot of garbage in the carburetor when I rebuilt it. So I wasn't real sure if this carburetor was going to work, and so I was considering, should I go with the Holley 2-barrel or just order the factory carb, you know, if this one doesn't work. Got out some wire cutters, cut it back, and that's when I kind of realized that, you know, this hose is decrepit and nasty, and that's where I saw the cuts and such. And so kind of figured I probably should just replace this line, because the minute I tried to start the car, as you'll see in a minute, that hose immediately started to leak again. This time I'm actually going to tighten the clamp, both on the bottom and the top, to make sure that the gas doesn't come squirting across the car into the on the battery. That was definitely I got a wake up moment and go scurrying to figure out what's wrong. Could not. I pulled the start wire off the solenoid. It would not stop trying to start, so I ended up having to remove the negative battery cable. And in this case, before I did all of this, I also left the negative cable loose, just to make sure that if I needed to pull it, I could pull it, in case it was something besides the solenoid. This car hadn't been running for quite some time. When I went up to Idaho Falls, Idaho, and picked it up, it was running, be it running, period. He had it running when I pulled in the driveway. So it was kind of an interesting thought, because you know, when you go in there and the car is running when you get there, you can pretty much count on the fact that it's not going to run when you get it home. And from past experience, I've known that to happen. But because it did run, I was satisfied with the purchase price. These things go for unreal amounts of money, and then all the ones that are out there, they're full of rust. So once again, like I said, I didn't replace the line yet, but I did go ahead and tighten it up. I'm going to crank on it a little bit, and she does try to fire up, and I'm going to break a cardinal rule here and shoot brake cleaner into it, because it's all I had, just to try to get it to idle up. We know that the fuel pressure is good because we saw it squirting from the hose onto the battery. So yeah, if we wanted to blow the car up, we could definitely do it, because the fuel pump has been replaced. He did go through and replace a few of the items. He just didn't replace that carburetor, mainly because yeah, there we go, putting brake fluid in it. That's always smart. My suggestion is never do that. What I wanted to do is see if it was going to pop off, and as you'll see, she shakes and she comes to life. And for the couple of seconds that it did run, it ran well. So analyzing this and going through it and doing this a few times just to hear it run, I realized that, yeah, we're not getting fuel in this carburetor. There's definitely an issue. Ended up pulling the top off the carburetor, and once again finding a lot of garbage in it. Don't know if it's from the fuel tank or where it's from, but broke down and decided, you know what, I'm over it. I am going to order a carburetor for this car. Yeah, like I say, that's kind of what I'm telling you there, is it's time for and whoever invented the 80s, 70s and 80s, late 70s, early 80s cars with the vacuum lines, there are more lines running to more places on these cars than you can shake a stick at. It's all part of the smog and emission system. Some of them, the vacuum runs off of the for the heater and air conditioning and all that kind of thing. But yeah, this thing's got more hoses on it than Carter's got liver pills. Once again, squirting some brake fluid in it. Like I said, don't ever run brake fluid in your car, because if it runs dry, you'll wash your rings, and you don't want to do that. But you see, she ran here for a few seconds, so that was good. So now it's time to check everything else. I went through, I know there was a fuel pressure because we saw it squirt, but I wanted to double check anything, make sure it didn't get clogged up. Because at this point, it had been a few weeks. We'd moved the car around a little bit. I gave it a couple of attempts to start before I started videoing, so definitely wanted to make sure that the fuel filter wasn't clogged, and of course you got to get the giant wrench to check it. So I ended up pulling the fuel filter off, and after I pulled the fuel filter off, I blew through it, and yeah, you could get air through it without any problem at all. So the next thing I did was take a good look at the filter. Like I said, I blew it out, make sure it was clear, and yeah, you could blow air right through it. So that told me that it was a good filter, maybe a little bit too good, but for the situation, yeah, we knew it was working well. So I ended up putting the old one back on again, and From here on, I ended up replacing the hoses or the fuel line, because like I said, that one was giving me a lot of trouble. It was leaking really bad down underneath the down in the bottom of the hose. So that was a really old hose, probably came with the car for all I know, or it was just an old hunk of hose laying around. So I wanted to make sure that the hose was good. So as you'll see here in a minute, I replaced the fuel hose. At this point that I discovered that there was gas leaking down that hose, I had clipped the end back to make it nice and clean, but it was still leaking gas. Checked the filter housing, that wasn't it. So the only thing left really was the fuel line. And so I do have fuel line in the garage, so I went to go get some. I checked the filter, changed the fuel line, did give it a crank up to see if it would start and run, and gave it a shot, and with no luck. So at this point, I knew that it was the carburetor. I reached down, I'm not going to show the video, but I actually pulled the top off, and there was fuel in the carburetor. The bowls were up where they're supposed to be. It's just the passageways were so plugged and so nasty that fuel just wasn't getting through. So I attempted one more time to clean out that carburetor and just said, you know what, it's just not worth it. As you see it, she's starting for a minute, and then she shuts right off again, but that's residual brake clean. But from this point on, she didn't even try to start, and I wasn't going to put any more brake clean in it, so I called it at this point. Stay tuned for the next video that comes out. The carburetor, it did end up being ordered. It's about a $350 monster. So like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next.